Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Leicester City Down Under. Thank you, Strata, for joining me. How are you feeling today?
I'm
You hyped
good.
for Sunday?
I'm enjoying the Marescalator, as they're calling it. We only go up on the Marescalator, so let's see where we do. We're in a good run of form, top of the table. Hopefully, we can keep it going. How are you?
Always, mate. Good, mate. I'm feeling pretty hype about Sunday. Get into it soon, but I feel like this is going to be one of those games where it clicks away. So, well, Blackburn sitting in 14th, and they just smashed Cardiff. It is the Carabao Cup, and probably should read into it too much. But they lost to Ipswich, Sunderland, beat Middlesbrough. Been up and down. They're sitting 14th. I'm not going to sit here and say that I've watched a lot of Blackburn. I would if I could, but now that we're not in the Premier League, I don't have much options other than highlights, and I don't like giving too much analysis via highlights. But I know you do your homework pretty well, so what have you watched much of Blackburn? How do you feel?
No, it's funny because I think this season that's like a big learning experience for us all, right? We're playing teams that we weren't too familiar with. And so we're having to get used to how they play. Obviously, the thing with Blackburn is they beat us in the FA Cup last season, and that was a very eye-opening game. In fact, it was quite scary. Scary because I think we all knew that relegation was a real possibility. But I think also the thing that really shocked me when we played them is they didn't play how I thought a championship team would play. And I don't know about you, but I think that's been the biggest learning for us this season is that the last time that Leicester were in the championship, it was very different. It was definitely more direct, more attritional, more physical. There wasn't so much quality. Teams did play 4-4-2, including Leicester at times, and it was more kind of traditional English football. So far this season, we haven't played a single team that's played 4-4-2 against us. And spoilers, that's not going to change on Sunday when we play Blackburn because they play 4-2-3-1. And they, in particular, when they played against us, they played like a high pressing style, which kind of caught us unawares. So they had a lot of gaps in behind, and we did score from that. But they robbed a lot of our defence. And it was one of those Daniel Amati, he was like a cult figure at Leicester. He had some good games, he had some bad games, but shall we say this was not one of his finest games? They stole the ball off him a few times. He got some chances, scored some goals that way. So, yeah, I think that's basically from what I've seen of them. That's kind of continued this season. So, John Dale Thomason's their manager. He like plays quite an attractive, high pressing style. I think he should be, quite praised for doing that kind of stuff. Is that definitely, quite a progressive manager? Although that style is now seen quite a lot in the Championship. I think what's really interesting though is that he does seem to be like one of these that he's got his style and he's not going to deviate from it. So in their recent results, you mentioned it at the top of the show there, they've lost to Sunderland, they lost to Ipswich. Ipswich are the other standout success story in the league this season, right? Of course, we always talk about Leicester, but given the resources that Leicester have, to be honest with you, it's almost like if we had no manager, I still think we could be top three just because, we've got such a strong team. I mean, that may not be true. That might be a bit like, overplaying it, but we do have clearly the best squad in the division. They just got promoted from League One to the Championship. They're second, and they've actually won 25 out of their last 26 games, Ipswich. But anyway, Blackburn went to play them. And even though Ipswich were in this red hot form, they still went to attack them. So the game ended up being 4-3 from watching their highlights, extended highlights on TV. And yeah, the game was very interesting because even though they were away from home, Blackburn, they went to attack. They pushed their fullbacks right up. But maybe if I share my screen, I can show you some of that stuff. You can see just sort of how high up the pitch they push all their players. And so because of that, yeah, here we go. So here are two games that we can see. So on the left here, we've got them against Ipswich. On the right, we've got them against Sunderland. And you can see in both games, although they're shooting in different halves, just look how high up the pitch all their players are, right? Even their goalkeeper isn't on the line. So he's playing a little bit like us. He's being like a sweeper keeper trying to start the play. You can see that they push their fullbacks 2 and 3 on both sides right the way up. Against Sunderland, they were right the way up on the halfway line, like really trying to take the game to them in a home game. The other game they were away, but still they definitely weren't sitting back. And in the Ipswich game here on the left, here's their number 7, their winger, who's like an Icelandic guy, and he plays right the way up, and he scored twice in this game. A very good game from him. So they will go for it. So I think this is going to be like the real thing. But what I will say, Luke, is I think that's great for Leicester. I actually think for us, teams that we have struggled against have been the ones that have parked the bus. Like the Bristol game last week, we did break them down eventually, but it took a penalty. But it was one-way traffic for the entire game pretty much, but still we only got the one goal away. Whereas when we've played teams that have opened up, like Southampton, like Norwich, the spaces have been in there behind and we can exploit it. So I actually think that this should really play into our hands. We should be able to play through the press. Maybe we should talk a bit about the Liverpool game, but that was obviously one of the best pressing teams in world football. We still came in at halftime with a lead. I think we were kind of fortunate to have that lead, if I'm being honest. But I think what I've noticed in the team over the last 2 to 3 weeks, or certainly since the last international break, is that our play on the transition is so much better than it was. So now when the opposition loses the ball, we frequently are scoring off that. The speed of the passing, the finishing, there's more composure in the finishing, mainly back to Mr. Casey Mack, who I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But not just that, it's the passing through the lines is really, really good. So that's definitely improved. And this is going to be a team that's going to leave those spaces. So I think that's probably going to be the more important thing. The other thing I would say that has personally impressed me is our ability to sustain attacks. So sustaining attacks is, we make a move, we don't quite score, but we keep hold of the ball and then we make another chance and another chance and another chance. And I think against Bristol City, there was like a moment in the 60th minute where they put all these like last ditch challenges, just got it off the line, and their two centre backs are just high-fiving each other like they've just scored a goal. And it was good defending, but I thought to myself, you're doing this in the 60th minute. You've got 30 minutes more to play plus stoppage time. You're not going to be able to do it for all that long. And sure enough, we got the goal. And that's the thing that was missing. So when we played Hull City earlier in the season and we lost, we were making attacks. But what would happen is that we'd have a shot, but then it would go out of play and then the attack had to start over again. So we weren't really turning the screw, so to speak. Whereas against Bristol City, they were just fully under pressure and offering nothing. So that's good too. However, I think that in this game, we won't really see that so much because I think on paper, I think if we read what the pre-form and the form is right now, they will set out to try and attack. They'll probably lose the ball in midfield. We'll probably turn it into a quick counter and we may well score off that. We may do that a few times, in fact, a bit like the Southampton game. I will say that they have been pretty good in front of goals. So I think it will be a challenge to keep a clean sheet. I think they've actually, I believe the stats showed that there have been more goals in Blackburn games this season than any other team. So I suppose if you're a fan, you're guaranteed to get, some sort of, value for your money. That we'll see. The other very interesting thing is, I don't know if you know this, but this is the first time that 2 previous Premier League champions have played one another in the Championship.
I know. It's mental. And like a couple of things actually to go on to what you just said. One, Hull did something I thought very similar, just wasn't as organized in terms of parking the bus, not really coming to attack us. But the thing is, when teams do that, you've seen a lot in our games. They get with the high possession-based football that we're having and how fast it is, and it's getting faster. Like we're gassing teams. Like you can see them, like the 80th, 90th minute, like they're absolutely gassing. And make no mistake, I don't want to sound arrogant. I don't want to be like we're going to walk the league, and especially after what we've been through in the Premier League. But let's be honest with ourselves, okay? And this isn't big-headed. I don't think it is, and if it is, I don't care. I think we could punch on of the bottom half easily of the Premier League. Shouldn't say easily, but there's the team that we have and the depth that we have in the Championship is ridiculous. And it's amazing that it's, re-putting confidence into players like Ndidi and developing these young players in the Championship and then getting the confidence up rather than getting battered, once every 2 to 3 weeks and breaking them down and then building it. I think that, it's getting ahead of myself, but let's say that if we were to get promoted first time of asking, and then bring in more recruits and build around with some more experience around the young guys we have, it could be excellent. But that's a conversation for another time. But make no mistake that I think we need to be going up first time of asking at the very minimum playoffs.
Well, I'd say that I think to give you some evidence to what you're saying, it's not just an opinion. I would say here's the data and the data would back you up. So here we've got the expected goals and the expected goals against. And I think, this is one of those things that I kind of hate this statistic, but I will say that it does seem to be fairly accurate. So what this is saying on the per game basis is that using this kind of analysis model, how many goals should we be scoring versus how many they should be scoring? And what we can see early in the season, so if we look at the Coventry City game, actually they outscored us in terms of expected goals. So even though we won the game 2-1, and anyone that watched the game, you could say we got away with one big time there, right? KDH saved our bacon. I was at that game myself personally, and everyone was like, whew, after we did it, but it was all good, The next game then we played Huddersfield. Huddersfield again, we won 1-0, but it was a close game. And again, the stats kind of laid this out. Basically, probably should have been 1-1. The next game we played Cardiff. Cardiff we won. We in fact scored 2 goals, but you can see again that the data actually showed that we were lucky to get away with that. And they had quite a few breaks on us, you might remember, before Cassidy put home the winner, where they probably could have taken the lead themselves. But then there was kind of the turning point. And you can see that ever since that game, the stats have started to get firstly better and then somewhat ridiculous. So then we played Rotherham, and that's a pretty comprehensive win. We maybe didn't score so much, but we clearly won the game. And from that point on, I think there's 2 big things that stand out. One is not only the fact that we are expecting now to score more goals. So you've talked about the fluency of the attack and getting better there. But I think people are not really giving Enzo enough credit on this. He's fixed the defence. We've got the best defence in the league right now. The reason we got relegated last season is because our defence was terrible. We kept scoring goals. When we played Everton, we scored against them. When we played Leeds, we scored against them. We scored the goals. But what we couldn't do is you couldn't keep a clean sheet. We just couldn't keep the ball out of the net. And that's why we went down. So if you're going to, they often say goals win games, but clean sheets win championships. And we're in the championship. So probably good to get the clean sheets. And so here you can see that, against Hull, even though they beat us, they were not expected to score any goals. So this shows you that they scored off a fluke goal, which is basically what happened. Southampton, they actually put up a respectable number, but look how much they gave us in return, right? So this is funny. The expected goal was 4.1 to 1, and that's what happened. It was a 4-1. Yes, that's only tell half the story, of course. But what I'm saying is there is something to it, I guess, is what we're saying. So my point here is if you look at the underlying data, yeah, we're the best team in the league right now. The second best team in the league is Ipswich. You can have a look at their stats. I'll give you a question, actually, though. Who do you think is the third best team in the league right now?
Right, I've got a good... I think right now, the third best team, I don't think it's going to click just yet, but if we're going off form, I would actually say, to be honest with you, Hull. But if I'm going to pick the first, who I think is going to go up, I think it's going to click a lot more for Leeds as the season goes on.
Leeds is the correct answer. Yeah, according to...
Leeds...
Yeah, no, of course it doesn't. As we said there, data doesn't mean everything, right? But if we look at the underlying data, if you look at like their XG and XG against, it suggests that they're the other form team or the team where it's clicking for. Whereas, for example, Preston, who are currently in third place, if you look at their data, it kind of says that they're getting away with it. Although what's kind of funny with Preston is in their last game, it's the first time where they actually outperformed and they were expected to win the game and they actually didn't. So they're a bit unlucky in that regard. But my point is that, so if you look at the start of the season, we were winning games, but a lot of Leicester fans themselves were saying, oh, we're getting a bit lucky to get away with this, right? And the data kind of backed that up. But now the data is saying the opposite. Now it's saying that Leicester are comprehensively beating teams. And if anything, you might expect there to be a bit of a battering going on. So you mentioned that yourself. This, to be honest, could be... Yeah, this could be one of those teams because they're going to be leaving space in behind and they're going to go for it. And I would say the one team in the division you probably don't want to do that against is probably us because that's our way of playing.
We want people to attack us 100%.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And again, like as for all the stats, and how Ipswich has done really well so far, we all know, as we just said. But again, bringing it back to the depth we have, that's when that's going to show. That back end of the season when people start picking up a few injuries or people start getting tired, and that's why I don't really care so much about the Carabao Cup just this one time because. It's, with all due respect, it's the Carabao Cup, but let's just, can you imagine if we went late into the stages of a Carabao Cup and then potentially even an FA, and add all those games on top of a really, really long championship? It's going to be brutal. But back to Ipswich, teams like that, they're doing well now. Let's reevaluate this in about 10 to 15 games time because I think that would tell a different story. I think that's when you'll start seeing Leeds, maybe even Sunderland, those sorts of teams that start sitting higher up.
I would agree because that's what this division is about. It's like you don't actually. The last time Leicester got promoted out of the division, even though we were good, to be honest with you, I would say that every week we were kind of playing 7 out of 10 every week. But the thing is that was enough. And it's like if you play 7 out of 10 every single game, you normally end up winning the championship or going up at minimum. So yeah, what will most likely happen?
I'm just going to bring Brad in here. Sorry, keep going,
bring him in. What normally happens is that. As the injuries start mounting up, you're under big trouble and you're not going to win games that normally you would do, usually. That said, we are going to lose some players for AFCON, so that is a little bit of a problem for us. As it stands, we'd lose Kelechi, Iheanacho, and Woolford and Diddy from the starting line, and Fatawu probably. So that's 3 big players. Well, but he's not really playing. I know.
Sorry, go
Well,
on.
but I know he came on, but the reality is he's played half an hour all season. So for me,
100%. Yeah.
I wouldn't consider him right now like a player that we can't afford to lose. But we'll
I
see.
only mention it because, and Brad, I'll bring this to you in a second. The only mention I bring Daka up is because, and trust me, he's frustrated the life out of me. But if Kelechi goes, we've got an aging Vardy with all due respect, and Cannon, we don't know what's happening with his back. That only leaves one striker. I will say this, and I want to ask you what you think of this, Brad. I'll bring this to you. Casey McAteer, like I know he's a winger and it's amazing and he tracks back and the lad's everywhere and you can see the passion and the ambition in him, but he's almost like striker minded. Those runs that he makes, uh, they're brilliant. I think he's read of the play of the ball. I think he's in the right place at the right time with a good football brain for such a young lad. Like I think he's playing really well.
Yeah, he is, and this is the joy what you get when you work with youngsters, and you have a manager that's keen and very good at working with youngsters. Is they're able to just adapt so quickly. They're still young, they're still eager to impress. So it's kind of like, yeah, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir, if you will, in the nicest way, because they're so eager to impress and learn and want to make that impact and be that next star. Even if it's just with that club, they become known as a star, and McAteer's clearly doing that. And I'm going to make a comparison here, and don't think I'm getting in my head of myself, but the way McAteer plays, it reminds me of how Eden Hazard played for Chelsea when he had the likes of Drogba and whoever else on the right. I can't remember who he had on the right, I'll be honest with you. We had a lot of partners on the right side. I don't mean in terms of talent. No, don't get that twisted straight off. But if you think about it, when Chelsea had a very good Chelsea side, not like they've got today, where they're bottom basement team, right, under Pochettino with the 5 million players they've got. I mean, is if you actually looked at his record alongside Drogba, who's the only main striker I can really think of that's standing out to remember him with, he scored a lot of goals and got a lot of assists. And if you look back at Chelsea's successful period, he was the main reason they got it, because when the strikers weren't able to get the goals, he was getting them. I remember a game against us when we got back promoted. I think we lost 2-0 at Stamford Bridge and we kept him for an hour. But he scored a goal that just broke us down. And when that happened, the flood of Chelsea chances came firing forward and we lost the game. Again, not a skill comparison. I'm not saying we've got the next Eden Hazard in our youth system, but what he brings to the squad can sometimes go unnoticed in that position. And it's great to see that he's doing that, because he gets in them positions. Like you said, he doesn't just stick to the wide right, which we're used to with many wingers over our time. He comes into that middle, he collects the ball on the halfway line, he'll drive out of defence, he'll notice pockets of gaps that some players aren't picking up on, and we don't even see in the crowd, we don't even recognise it as a chance, and he just runs into them channels. And it's an exciting time for Leicester fans to have one of their own again. A regular thing with Leicester, it seems, with our youth product, to have someone so exciting and hungry and so switched on with a great footballing brain.
You guys hype me up with your enthusiasm. First of all, just want everyone to know that Brad is currently not on the webcam because he has a Chelsea Hazard shirt on, and we're all worried.
I'm just wandering around. I'm wandering around my house, so I don't think everybody wants a tour of my house. This is a Leicester City street, not location.
No, spot on, Brad. I want to ask both of you guys. I've only watched the highlights for Liverpool, and I don't want to come on and do a bunch of analysis just off highlights, but I do have questions. It's the one game I would have got up. You guys know I get up crazy early for games, but there was literally no way for me to stream it, so I didn't want to wake up at 2:45 in the morning with no guarantee of watching it, because I would have been filthy. But I wanted to ask you a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to ask you about Connor Cody, because, and we'll get into my starting 11 soon, but I saw that he played a full 90 minutes. I saw those blocks and saves he made. They look amazing. The main question I have for you, Brad, and I'll start with you, Anil, what was his ball distribution like? Because if he's going to take that middle spot, the one thing we have to give Yannick Vestergaard credit for is he's been good on the ball. Now, in terms of playing from the back, that's vital, especially from that middle role, because I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I've seen it a lot, and I wish I had a screen thing to show it. But basically, I've noticed a lot that when it comes from the goal kick from Mads, So we've got someone usually drawing a player and defender, running straight through down the middle, and then passing it straight to them. It's usually Ricardo Pereira, Harry Winks, or Vestergaard. It goes past straight back to Mads Hermansen, and then distributes it out wide, and then they move forward with the ball. I don't know if you've noticed that. I think it's something they drill 100%. But how was Connor Cody on the ball?
Yeah, if you don't mind, share the screen again. I can share some stuff. I mean, the TLDR is he was great. He, you know, is a very challenging game, but I've got here, this was from SofaScore, so we got the top rating for that game of all of our players, right? And he's only played one game for us there in the EFL Cup, so he was pretty good. He was controlling the pace. He did put like a lot of blocks in and stuff. I will say though that you really felt against the Liverpool that was such a step up in terms of quality of opposition, right? You know, it wasn't even close to anything we've seen in the Championship. At times, our goal really led like a charmed life. I think it was interesting because our style of football did work at the same time. Like for me, it was encouraging because clearly you could see we made chances against them by playing out through the press. But at the same time, especially when we were 1-0 up, it was like, it did feel like we were just like unnecessarily giving them chances through playing out from the back when maybe we didn't need to. But of course, Enzo's trying to teach the team to do that. He's like, I don't really care so much about the result. Although he said in his post-match, of course, he would like to win. But, you know, he needs them to get, you know, the guts to be able to do that at Anfield. That's going to give them in better stead for when we're a Premier League team. So, you know, as the match went on, we started getting caught more and more playing out for a back or playing under pressure, but we did still make chances. Even when we went behind, they kept pressing, we kept making chances. So Cody was good, he was kind of managing the pace. But what I wanted to share though, this is kind of interesting, this is one of the Championship teams of the season, and you might notice that one of your mates there at centre-back, the redeemed man himself, is that Yannick Vestergaard's there. Now, I'm sure each one can do it, but this one, again, is like a statistical thing. So it's probably looking at things like blocks, aerial clearances, progressive passes, tackles, all this kind of stuff as well. I find it interesting as well because Dewsbury Hall's in the team as well. And he's another one that most Leicester fans would probably say hasn't really been that impressive, but it's hilarious. That I agree with that, by the way. I think for his standards, I would expect him to be even better. But the point is that in this division, even KDH playing 7 out of 10 every week is actually the equivalent of an 8 out of 10 for everyone else in the division because he's so much better. So I'm sure you're going to ask the question, what's he going to do with the two of them? I mean, it seems like a good problem to have. You could have either of them there playing at the same time. And it did seem in pre-season that he was, you know, in his very first couple of games, Maresca, he would have like one team play 60 minutes, then another team would play 60 minutes and rotate it like that. And he'd have either Cody or Vestergaard. What was interesting is he never played them both at the same time. So my suspicion is we'll see the same thing. Vestergaard didn't play at all. So I think he will be used in this game. You're right about Mads as well. Harry Winks didn't play either. So I think you're likely to see all three of those come into the team and maybe he'll just rotate it through. Maybe for him as well, his kind of thinking is that like of all the CBs, that's the one that's the most important position because they're almost like the quarterback, right? They're controlling the pace of the game. So, you know, if let's say we play two of them in one game and then one gets injured, then the other one's going to be tired. You always want to make sure that you've got one available. So I've got a feeling it might be one of those things where you never see them both play at the same time. But who knows? I mean, he can do whatever he wants, but he seems to be hinting in his press conference today that JJ's probably going to play instead of Callum Doyle for the foreseeable future.
Okay, you've just raised so many points that I wanted to ask you about. And let me know if you need to go because, like, I don't want to keep you here forever. But like, first of all, how did Sutar play? And was he in the middle or was Connor Cody in the middle? That's what I want to know because
Cody was like in the middle. Yeah,
Cody was in the right.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw a few crunching tackles from Sutar. How did you think he played, Brad Sutar?
Look, you mentioned Vestergaard as a man that's been reborn under Enzo. Sutar was a man that I thought was the Vestergaard of last season. He was seemingly out the picture. There was a lot of talk of him going out on loan, potentially even maybe sold over. I'm sorry, give me a second. Move outside. Over the transfer window, obviously. But we don't know. Obviously, injuries have occurred. Unfortunate as it is to Doyle, it means there's an opportunity here. You can't read too much into being given a debut, if you will, in a Carabao Cup match. I mean that for not just Sutar, but obviously a player we mentioned earlier in Daka. But he did well. He did the job that Wout Faze likes to do. He was getting his head on things. He was trying to drive forward. So, in terms of making an appearance and showing that he's still up for playing football, yeah, he looks really good. He looks like somebody who's settling in to the squad and isn't shirking the fact that he doesn't want to play football or anything, which is the opinion you sort of got from him. You know, Brendan dropped him after signing him. Dean Smith kind of made excuses for him not being in the team, saying he was too tired after one game. That was always a bit suspect for me. But he's here and he's doing well. And just quickly, just to add to the Connor Cody part that Anil made, it's brilliant analytic job he did there, mate, of how he's done. The fact that he's made, the fact that he came here, got injured, has had to recover from an injury and have 0 match time to defend like that against a Premier League opposition. That was 2 rotated sides. So it wasn't like Liverpool put out their under 23s or anything like that. That was a pretty even teams in contrast of what we put out and what was available to us. That was a really good performance. And I think it needs a bit more hype than it deserves, probably, because, yes, we lost the game and we were rocky at times. But that was against Liverpool, and they only won it in the 70th minute. So, Connor Cody had a great game. And we're going to have areas of concern throughout the season with potential injuries and an AFCON coming up. But the defence, like Anil said, compared to last season where it was the biggest hole in our ship, it looks solid. We look really reinforced, and we shall not be moved. Is the case. Get through us at your own peril if you can, because they look really solid as a back line. So it was good to see. It was really good to see Souttar just go straight in and Cody go straight in and have a performance the way they did.
The only thing I would say about Souttar, just quickly though, is that I do think it's a bit critical. So I don't want this to sound like an overly big dig, but I felt like on the ball, he wasn't as good as like Cody or Vestergaard would be, which I think is a suspicion why he may not have been in the team so much from the start of the season. I don't want it to make it sound like he was terrible, but there were a few times where he made some misplaced passes. I think one thing he did, which was good though, is he was doing that diagonal switch that, Fast does a lot in the game as well, right? Like, like the way that Leicester plays is they compact the play down one side or the other. And then it means that either McAteer or, Mavadidi is completely free on a one-on-one situation and they get played through. So he was playing that switch ball really nicely. That was good from him. His blocks and his clearances were good, but I do feel like when the ball got played to him, when we were under pressure and the Liverpool press was on him, he looked a bit suspect. Now, what I would say though is that there's no team in the Championship that can press like that. So not even us. Right. So that is going to be like a bit unfair. Plus, as Brad said, it was his first game of the season. I think you'd have to do it. Yeah. I saw Enzo after the game. He did compliment him and said he played well, which I think is fair. So it sounds like he's going to be in contention for selection. But I think he's still going to be rotation option. I think, again, like the fact that Faz, Vestergaard and Winks were all rested and Hermansen kind of shows you who are considered to be the mainstays of the team. Although I will say what surprised me is that Casey McAteer played for so long, because to me, like the stats don't lie, right? He scored the most goals for us. And you mentioned his runs and everything like that. He's such a good player. It's kind of hilarious, I feel, that this is the first season where we've signed 2 good wingers potentially that could play in that position. And it turns out we had one all along. It's just the classic Leicester way that would happen. But I suppose that's a nice problem to have. And they put Yunus as a number 8 instead of a winger. And I personally, you didn't see the game, Luke, but Yunus actually had quite solid, I would say, first 50 or 60 minutes. So
I think sorry to interrupt you, Neil, but I actually think he does better in that number 8 role than he is for his purpose that he's signed. He seems to be more composed.
Maybe.
And the way he holds the ball up and got through people, I was like, Jesus, he's not fearless. He looks so much more comfortable on the ball in that number 8 role than he ever did. Well, I say ever did, like he's played a million games. But you know what I mean? When we've seen him out wide, he looked a bit cautious and a bit preemptive. But there, he looked in his throw.
Okay, I'm about to go ADD as here, but first of all, spot on, Anil. So I can imagine, and from what I have seen of Souttar, he does make good crunching tackles. He is that aerial threat from set pieces, but in terms of defense, if you said he's not reliable with his ball distribution, that makes perfect sense because that's obviously the main focus of what Enzo Maresca wants. Hence why we've seen Mads Hermansen get signed. No one thought that Everson was going to go. He was a great shot stopper, much better than Ward. The standard was set low with all due respect, but still, his ball distribution was poor. And let's also not get it twisted either. Like, with all due respect again to Kasper Schmeichel, amazing club legend. His ball distribution was also quite poor too. You know, he used to boot it. It would just go out wide and it would put Leicester on the back foot all the time, and it constantly invited pressure. And in terms of the defense improving massive this season, every single time there was any turnover whatsoever, or any counter attack last season, I was like, here comes a goal, here comes a goal. It felt like any kind of tiny threat whatsoever was like terrifying, even though we were scoring. But we're out of, so Doyle, we might not see him play again. If that's his knee, that's it. Like,
no, they said it's going to be 3 to 4 months, so it's not.
Oh, they did?
Well, yes, I wouldn't say that's.
They
good,
made it like it was an ACL. Yeah, I was like thinking, he's done his, you know what I mean?
I thought that was Cody as well. Yeah.
I think they thought at first worst case scenario, didn't they? But then they've done a bit of a scan, and it's not as bad as they first feared, which is good, because obviously, you know, as much as we're expecting Doyle to probably be one of them loanees that doesn't return to us, you never know. Influence is a key thing. I mean, Cassidy joined us over Genoa because of Enzo, and he's obviously worked with them before. If he was to have to go back to Man City now because his season was done, it'd be a gutting thing, because Enzo clearly likes him, and you know, as much as Man City like to hold on to everybody, a bit like Chelsea, eventually some they actually let out the net, and it'd be good if by the time the new year rolls around, we get to see a bit more of Doyle, because I think, I don't want to be too critical. I know we're trying not to be. We're trying to be a bit nice because of our team, but Doyle hasn't really shone as much as the expectation was maybe on him. And maybe that's a bit unfair to have had the weight of expectation on him that we did. But it'd be nice to see a little bit more of what Doyle can offer us. So let's hope that is the case.
I think Doyle had started well, and he had 2 poor games, and then I thought his first half last game he had was actually a lot better, and he is quite young. But I honestly personally thought he was definitely one of the, if you would say, favourites for Enzo Maresca, because I do personally think on paper, or just from what I've seen, that JJ would be the safer option, and I think it's starting to show now, these minutes getting into him. But I think Enzo wants a left-footed defender in the back line, so
I think we signed Doyle 100% at the end of the season. I actually think the injury might mean we get him for cheaper, but I do agree with what Brad said there, by the way. Yeah. Like, I think it is a fact that, like, he started off strong, but teams started targeting him and realized he could be a bit of a weak link. But for a 19-year-old, he's very good. And I think that is the Leicester, you know, to be honest with you, when Leicester were doing their best, it was signing these, you know, promising young players like your James Maddisons and Yuri Tielemans, right? Developing them and selling them on for a profit. So I think he's definitely got that about him. He's English as well, so homegrown quota. Plus, you know, if someone does end up buying him, you'll probably get a monster sum for him. So I think he'll come in 100%. But it will be interesting to see who comes in and if it does affect us. Because the thing is, then, well, what happens if Justin needs a rest? Although he's got a very good engine on him. Like, we might see Ben Nelson even has been mentioned, who's been on the bench a few times, not yet started under Enzo, but he's sort of both-footed. Well, he's more right-footed, but his left foot is very good. So you might see some games of him playing too. But let's see. Let's not, you know, second guess what happens right now.
No worries, sounds good. And just before I get into the starting 11 and the score prediction, I just want to ask both of you guys what you think of. I don't know why Ricardo played a whole game, but from what I spread, he played 90 minutes, yes, against Liverpool?
Yeah.
He did, yeah.
He did.
Him and JJ's injury record gives me anxiety. Who do you think Yunus Akgün could play Harry Winks' role? Because I kind of feel like when you talked about it earlier, I just remembered now, you talk about like the quarterback role, like how important is, if you're talking about 2 people that are really important for me playing at the back, is other than Madsen Manson, if we're talking players, I think Harry Winks and also Ricardo Pereira are vital for how we play in terms of ball distribution. What do you think in terms of Harry Winks, if he gets injured, who goes down?
I can go. I mean, I think what you'll see is that we're going to put Sammy Braybrook in that position when he's like a bit fitter. So maybe in the new year, and we're probably holding out till then. So he's like a really promising under 21 player. He was supposed to go out on loan in the Championship last year, but he done his ACL, as everyone does at Leicester. So that means that, you know, his career got set back a season or so. But he basically played in that sort of position as like a deep lying player, sort of Tielemans, Harry Winks role. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see him. You're right to say that if like Winks got injured tomorrow, let's say after 10 minutes or whatever, well, they'll probably put Hamza on, but it will definitely affect the team. He's so cool and composed under pressure. at the moment, I think it's reality. We don't have a like-for-like replacement for him. Whoever you put in is going to be somewhat worse. But I think they may well have done that because they're expecting Braybrook to at least be given a try in that position to see it. I do wonder if we get promoted, that could be a position where we invest in to make sure that we've got a bit more depth. I agree with you. I think he's one of the most integral parts of the team. But I think, your question is, why did we play Ricardo? I think the way that Maresca plays, he will always have either Winks or Ricardo in the team. And the reason he'll do well against good opposition, at least, because they're the best on the ball, I feel, right? So, that's the problem, is if you put someone there who's not good on the ball, then you're going to lose it. You're going to give it under pressure. And that's the real reason why Wilfred and Diddy's been moved up the pitch this season, right? Is because the team started figuring out that even though he was really good defensively, that he wasn't good on the ball. And if you could harass it and get him off him, the entire Leicester defense was wide open. So we fixed that, but he wants to make sure you got someone good there. And you asked, could Yunus play there? Perhaps he could, but I think he's more of an attacking player. But I do agree with Brad. I think he actually may be better in that 8 role than the wide one, because to me, I said this on someone else's cast, but he reminds me a bit of Bernardo Silva, not in a talent level, let's get that right? But purely because he's more of a kind of flexible, versatile player. I think he beats you with his brain rather than with like a trick or a shimmy. So like Fatawu and Mavididi, they're like about power, directness, do a trick and beat your man, and then, see you later. Yunus, I think, is more like he plays the ball at the right time. He sees the game quite well. He put the assist on for McAteer's first goal. And as Brad says, there was quite a few times, that wasn't the only time in the game, where he turned his man or made a bit of a space, half a yard, and it opened up the game completely. And that was really encouraging to say. And I say that's probably what you're suggesting. Could he do that in a 6 role? Maybe, but I feel like it's not his natural game. He's always going to be someone that wants to gravitate going forward. Harry Winks, I remember when we signed him, a lot of Spurs fans were like, yeah, well, if you want someone to pass it sideways and back, he's your man. Now, I think the refreshing thing for Leicester is he's not just doing that. In fact, I would say that all of our best attacks, they normally start when Winks does pass it forward. But I did see that Maresca, in one of his pre-match conferences, did say that that's the one thing he needs to work on, that he doesn't pass it forward enough. So, that is interesting. That maybe he is a bit overly cautious at times, shall we say. But I still think that's been a bit, I think he's been our best player this year.
I think he's been 100%. And you said it best, mate. He's the heartbeat of that team. He 100% is integral. We'll ask both of you guys what you think. Have you got a starting 11 that you've got predicted for Blackburn?
Yeah.
I'll start with you, Brad.
Sorry,
Brad.
Sorry, Anil. I jumped in on those.
No, it's your turn to talk. Go for it, Brad.
Sorry, mate.
No worries. No, I don't think it'll be much change, to be honest with you. I think you look at the midweek game. The only question I have is, I think first of all, Hamadson goes in goal. That's obvious. I think the back four will be JJ on the left, Ricardo on the right. And then I'm going to be controversial. Because we've got a midweek game, I think we see Connor Cody come in. I think Cody comes in with Wout phase. And the reason I say Connor Cody over Vestergaard, it may sound a bit harsh dropping from the form, is because Connor Cody's just got minutes under his legs, and you don't want to just make that go cold. You want to give him at least 70 minutes. You could bring Vestergaard on and just give him 70. I wouldn't be opposed to that. But give him that start and then let him recover and then put Vestergaard in for the Preston game. That's why I would go Cody. It's not, Luke, I'm not Vestergaard's biggest fan, but honest as it come, he's been brilliant this season. He really has. So it's nothing to do with that. I just think the smartest decision for Enzo would be get more minutes under Cody's belt. Let him have 70 minutes if you want to be precautious and take him off and put Vestergaard on if the game situation allows you to. And then you've got a fresh Vestergaard and a more match-ready Cody for games further down the line. Midfield pretty much stays the same. I would go KDH, Ndidi and Winks. I think we've got a solid 3 there. That's going to be your main 3 when available. Questions will come in January when Ndidi goes away, but we'll come to that bridge when we cross to it. And then the front 3. Now, I know Daka came on. I know Vardy started, and I know there's potential to call Vardy for starting because he scored in the last league game. But I think this is a game where you maybe need somebody who gets the ball at the feet, and then maybe at the second or third attempt, but he's able to hold on to it and come a bit deeper. So I would go Mavididi on the left, McAteer on the right, and I would go for my love child Iheanacho up front. I think Luke knew that was probably coming, but it's because I don't think we need somebody who's going to hold it at the edge of the box and then try and turn and go forward. I think we need someone to allow that midfield to come into the attack. And the boy can shoot from the edge of the box if necessary. He scored a few cheeky goals from outside the box. If you look back at his goal scoring career, so it's not like he can't get it on the turn and hit it. So for me, the only change would be Cody keeps his place at the back ahead of Vestergaard, and Iheanacho goes back up front over Vardy. But yeah, we're starting to see, like Neil said, we're starting to see. Yes, there's rotation, and we're going to see rotation throughout the season, but we are starting to see, when available, the 11's not really changing in certain areas right now. So yeah, that's my 11. And Neil, over to you, the expert here, who will tell me how terrible my team is and change my
No, not at all. I mean, the truth is, we've got such a strong squad. Is that we can choose whoever we want. I think I've said this before. I think he chooses it more on like who's done well in training that week, who's at their peak physical condition. If someone's at 95% instead of 100%, he's not going to play him because there's no need to. You want, like, our game relies upon being like high press, winning the ball back quickly, being having that advantage. So I don't think he's necessarily got favourites. To be honest with you, I think he'll just play pretty much how he played against Bristol City. I mean, I think every player that didn't start midweek, that probably means they are going to start. So I feel that you will see Mads. I think you will see Yannick. I think you will see Wout. I think you'll see KDH and Ndidi start. I think you will see Vardy because he didn't play at all. Mavididi didn't play either, did he? So he will probably come into the team as well. They're the usual ones. I think the more contentious ones will be, JJ instead of Doyle because he's injured. Last game against Bristol, he started for Tawu. McAteer played 90 minutes midweek again, but which one of those two will start, I'm not sure. I think you can make the argument for both. Tawu did quite well against Bristol City, but McAteer can't stop scoring, and it seems like he's got the energy. He maybe will play. I do feel people are jumping on the Daka hype train for some unusual reason, maybe, but I don't think he's going to magically come into the team. He might come on as an option later in the game, but Vardy, if anything, has picked up his game the last couple of games that he's played. I think certainly since the international break, he's looked much more like what we'd expect from him, like more clinical finishing, work in the channels well, and so on and so forth. So I'd expect him to keep his place, but I don't really bring too much into the team selection. I think whatever he does should be strong enough to do the game. I trust him with whatever he wants to do. Let's see where it goes. I mean, like I say, I think the more innovative things he's done recently would be changing Eunice's position, but that actually seems to work pretty well. I would say maybe the only person I can say at the moment who I think has genuinely been a bit disappointing probably has been Cesare Casadei, because I feel like after all the hype of chasing him all summer and his performance in the Under-20 World Cup, I was personally expecting him to be like almost a young player of the season contender, and he seems quite a way off that. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. He's a young player, but based on current form, for example, I couldn't see Leicester making an offer for him at the end of the season. I think we would just try and find our own one. And I think that is something to consider, is that come the end of the season, as you say, Luke, if we do get promoted, then all of a sudden we'll have funds. And what will they do in terms of the team and what they're doing? And that might have influenced some of the signings that we did or didn't make in terms of how much they want to commit. I do wonder if an attacking midfielder is someone that they want to go for. I think maybe the ploy is that you could bring in Casadei, make him feel loved, and then we might sign him permanently. But as I say, I think based on current form, he's got quite a lot to do to be considered in that thing. Whereas for Tawu, I think I would be surprised if we don't sign him, because even if he might be a bit inconsistent, to me, he appears like he's got such raw ingredients that I think he'd be an exciting player to sign anyway, and he probably could make it in the Premier League even if he doesn't hit the ground running. But like I say, I mean, these are probably stupid conversations to have right now, but you can't help but get excited.
No, I love that. That's the thing. That's what's it's all about, being a fan, getting excited.
And we can only go off what we've seen so far, and I think you're spot on, Neil. And sorry to interrupt you, Luke, but it's just something that's popped in my head, just kind of like, oh, actually, that makes more sense than it does. You know how we said, like, Kelechi, Daka, and Ndidi have. We're assuming here will go away on international duty, given especially Ndidi's incredible form. Do you reckon that's maybe why Renzo's gone? Actually, maybe to get the best out of both these wingers, I need one of these to be capable to come in and do that Ndidi role, or at least fill that midfield gap. Because it's just clicked in my head. Maybe that's why he is trying to make him into a number 8, not just to fit him in and get them both, the game requirements for their loan or something like that. But he's thinking, I'm going to have 8 weeks where I haven't got X player available to me. I need to make sure we've got one ready, so I'm not going into January panicking.
That makes a lot of sense, Brad. That definitely does. I mean, to be honest, though, that is there's 2 things I like about Enzo. One is he's definitely got this like thinking outside the box thing, right? Like the whole Wilfred and Diddy thing was inspired. I think bringing Yannick in has also been pretty inspired because there's 2 positions we didn't expect. McAteer as well, or even Wanya doing well. And the other thing, I think Enzo is a bit lucky. That's not a bad thing. It's quite nice to have a lucky manager at the same time as well. But it's like, for example, even though we lost against Liverpool, there are a lot of times where it's like, I can't believe the ball didn't go in the back of the net, but somehow it stayed out. Or even when we played Coventry in the first game of the season, there was a lot of times like, I cannot believe they've missed, but they have, and we've ended up winning the game. So there's some nice sort of managerial attributes to have. But I think you're right that he is probably thinking ahead. But I like that he's not just signed a player and think you can only play this one position. I also like that he's tried people in different places. So actually, pre-season, he was trying Patson Daka actually out on the left wing a few times. He tried Fatawu there in one of the games recently as well. So maybe he's still trying to work out exactly, like maybe he himself doesn't 100% know what his strongest 11 is or what the best position is for everyone. And that's not that surprising, I think, when you've got such a fresh team and they're still learning the way. Maybe that's even exciting for us to who it will be. And, I think that we'll see peaks and troughs as the season goes, that some people will pick up form and be undroppable. Then they'll probably go off the boil and someone else will come in, and that's fine. We got the squad to cope with that. That's how it works for the top teams, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, he's given me that sort of vibes. I mean, the Bell End Brendan tried it, and we kind of put our head in our hands when he tried to put someone in a position we never heard of. But right now, if Enzo was to tell us on 1 o'clock on a Sunday that Vardy was in goal and Hermansen was playing left wing, I'd just go with it. I mean, I just might go, fine, sure, Enzo. If that's what you've seen, mate, go with it, because he just gives you that vibe, and it's just going to go. It's going to click and go well for us.
No, I've got blind faith in him as well. And how nice is it just to get even just a bit of bang for your buck? Can you imagine like how even more sour and filthy we all would have been with Vestergaard if he had just left and continued to be frozen out for the money we spent? Would have been, Brendan Rodgers this and that. Well, and then it's the player that Brendan Rodgers said he wanted. Then said he wasn't good enough. And he just got frozen out. And then everything he did, and then when we did see him play was painful. The one area that I still am not convinced on is his aerial defending. Like he's so tall, but it's like he can't jump. Like just sticks his head up a little bit. But I'm being harsh. But
no, Peter Crouch couldn't do it, could he? Peter Crouch couldn't jump. It's something to do with. I think it's actually design on the fact that if you get to a certain height, you actually have such weak knees that your ability to jump isn't that brilliant. Whereas the likes of Messi and Ronaldo, they need to have springs and because they can jump some heights, can't they? So they're compensating. Maybe that's what it is.
I think you might be a bit harsh though. I mean, let me share my screen again. Like I was watching this, and if you have a look at the stats for Yannick, gotta love my stats. Gotta get try and make it.
Get your stats out for the lads.
Exactly.
Go on.
Be less. Get your stats out for the lads. Oh my god, that should be the name of someone's podcast. There you go. But yeah, you can see that in terms of aerials, he's in the top 77th percentile for players in the division in terms of defenders. So that's definitely not bad. Clearances, he's one of the better ones. So I think that's a little bit unfair. I know what you're saying is because Yannick, for whatever reason, he doesn't jump, probably because he's not used to doing it. And so sometimes he loses headers that you think he would easily win if he would try for it. But I would say that, if you look at this doesn't suggest that that's as big a problem as people make it out to be. It probably was a bigger problem in the Premier League, but here it's not too bad. That puts him in like the top 80% of players who are playing centre back in the league right now. So I think it's a bit unfair to say that, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, I think he's been really sorry, Brad. He's been really, really good. Yeah. Like with his ball distribution, reliable. We can even see his confidence is growing each week. He's taking an extra touch. Yeah. He's even driving forward a little bit more now. So it's great to see. But I guess I was wrong about that one. So I'm just scars of the past.
We actually now call him Roberto Vestergaard Carlos. That's what we call him now. He's got the way he pings the ball out wide and his control on it. He is a hell of a defender these days. It's proving me
Spot
wrong
on.
as well. Sorry, I'm reading the chat message there. Sorry, go on.
Sorry, mate. All right, well, lads, I'll let you go now. I'm sorry I've kept you here so long. It's just awesome to hear you guys go. I love the passion, I love the enthusiasm, and I just love the genuine vibe around the club right now. It's great. And so, guys, I'll finish with this. What's your score prediction for the game?
Go on, Brad, you go first.
Oh, okay. I'll see how it is. Turns up last, gets first. All right. I think we'll concede because Blackburn do play open, and I think they're going to be more creative than other teams have. I know you went over the whole stats on the games against Rotherham and all that, but I don't think they actually overall created a lot of clear-cut chances. I think with Blackburn, you're guaranteed to get that, and I just feel like we concede one. But I have put my hand on my heart, and I'm going with my heart, and I'm going to go 3-1 Leicester.
He stole my thunder. That's what I would go for as well. I think, yeah. All right, I'll go 4-1 just to make it different.
Oh, he's got to be difficult. Yeah.
I think it'll be 3-1 as well. I think that feels like that sort of kind of game.
Did you hear that, Lou? That's like one of them kids at school, in it, where you go, "Oh, I played football and I scored from 40 yards out," and he has to go, "Yeah, well, I scored from the halfway line." Like, yeah, all right, I see. You have to be different. Nah, it's gonna be a good game.
Well, thank you, Heath, for coming on. I've gone for 4-0, clean sheet, ambitious.
Even Vic, the host with the bigger score, eh? And what's he like?
Well, thank you, Heath, for coming on, guys. So I kept you here so long, but it was great having you on. I really appreciate it. Brad, tell everyone where they can follow you and find you.
So if you really, really want to follow me, that's a bit creepy, but I won't get a restraining order against you. But no, you can follow me on Twitter at Fulltime Focus, and I work for Chris on Leicester TV, or as it's abbreviated to LTID TV 1 and 2, where I do women's content and quizzes on the second channel. And I'm on the main channel tonight with Chris. We are doing our Predictions League roundup and, predictions as well. So yeah, go and check us out there. But make sure, guys, if you're catching up with us, if you've been watching live, smash a like on the button and give Luke a subscribe. He does great work. He's a massive Aussie, but we can forgive him for that. Still show him support.
Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that, mate. And what about yourself, Strider?
Do you know what? Actually, I'm not so much online. I'll just be sneaking into other people doing content with them, and that's how I like it. So no need to be. I am on Twitter. You can follow me at NilDG. That's my real account if you want, but it's actually got nothing to do with football. So it's up to you. If you like video games, that's actually what I do for a living. You can follow me there. Hopefully you'll see me on here, or I am on Beyond90 sometimes. Maybe I'll be on Brad's one occasionally. Take care.
Thanks, mate, for so much for coming on. You're spot on with your analysis for what it's worth, and it's great having you on and seeing on other channels. Thank you, mate. Thanks for coming on. All right, guys, Leicester Down Under. If you like this, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.